Okay, this is going to be raw, and I will try and I will try and tell you or explain it to you just as it happened. But I am still um I'm shaking a little bit, and I am feeling just a lot of emotion, which is why I felt like I needed to do this now. I was going to wait until after I came back from work to do this, to talk about this experience that I just had at about, I don't know, it was about six o'clock in the morning. It was amazing. And let me just get into it to let you know what it was. I was thinking that I wanted to actually do something because I was up pretty late working on my projects, the normal stuff that I do. So I decided just to lie down for just a little while before work. I was thinking it would be interesting to have an experience. I was doing this thing where I've talked about it before, where I am pushing against something in my mind. I imagine that my hands are pushing against space itself, as if trying to go through or break through a barrier in space. Now, sometimes I do this and there is no result, to be honest with you. But this time, oh man, there was a point where, that light went on and I went into that in between state. Some folks call it, I guess they call it the vibrational space. I call it the in between, the place, the sweet spot. I got there and I felt completely weightless. Now, I want to explain to those who, again, will always think of astral projection when they're thinking about these things. This does not feel like astral projection. It did not feel like astral projection with me on this experience. It felt as if my entire body was suddenly weightless and began to lift into the air. That's the only way that I can explain it. By the way, for those that are interested, in the background, I had on National Public Radio talk. I had that on because, again, I was resting. I didn't know if anything was going to happen, but oh my God. Oh, as I felt this weightless feeling, suddenly I was in a very familiar place. I've talked about this before. I think I've only really been there a few times. I believe that it is known as the void. That's what I've called it. Complete darkness, where you are turning as if you were an astronaut in space and you were weightless and you were in space turning around very slowly. Now, just telling you about the action does not convey the emotion. It's something I talked about once about darkness. Darkness was not necessarily a bad or an evil thing. And I said this as an example. I had pointed out the void, which was darkness. There is no sight when you're there. There is just pure emotion, pure love. It is so intense. I cannot explain it to you. I can't put it into words, guys. As a person who is a creative person, as a writer, I always search to put things into words to try and communicate them to people. But I can't communicate this to you in words. I just can't communicate the feeling to you when you're there. It is a connection with all things, everything in existence, everything that is. You feel that you are a part of it in that moment. That is the only way I can express it to you. And as this was happening, I thought I felt something like debris. I'm not certain. Um, as I was, because I believed I reached out my hand, and I thought I touched rocks or something like that for just a split second. And then there was music, and the music was indescribable. Again, I want to put it into words for you. I want you to know what I felt when I heard the music. It was coming from everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And then after a while, I heard music, and the music seemed to be coming in and out. So then I'd hear the music, and what was interesting was, at first I could still actually hear National Public Radio. I could hear the news in the background. So as I was turning and as I was feeling these emotions that were coming up, that were welling up inside me, I could still hear the news, but then this other sound came in. So the music that I'm talking about, the beautiful, extraordinary music, was going in and out, in and out. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And at some point, images, but not in any way that I can explain. It seemed to be above me, and it almost seemed to be like flat or two-dimensional, which was weird. Like there was an infinite screen above me, and it was showing something, but I couldn't quite see what the images were. Again, unexplainable as I continued to turn over and over and over again. And then suddenly, and I'm hoping I'm not missing any parts here, because this is still raw. I'm kind of here. I'm looking at my notes. There were voices too, I do believe, along with this. But again, there was a voice that told me something about. Now I repeated it when I was there in the void. I repeated what the voice said, but for some reason now I can't get the words. It was something about challenges. It was something about facing your challenges with grace, or facing them not necessarily with bravery, but facing them. May you face your challenges gracefully, or something like that. Something along those lines. And the voice was everywhere. It filled everything. This voice that said, something like, may you face your challenges gracefully, or something like that. And then suddenly I felt myself drop down. And I was standing in front of lockers that were impossibly high. In fact, I felt like I'd been like I was a tiny little being, like I was maybe 3 or 4 inches tall, maybe less than that. And I was looking up at these huge lockers way up, like buildings, but they were like, I was like in a locker room. And then I looked at this. I was intimidated, but the second I felt intimidated, I began to grow. I grew larger and larger and larger until I was actually an appropriate size to the lockers. I was actually the size of whatever this locker room was. I was standing there. So I turned and I looked around and I started walking. Now, down in front of me in the distance, these lockers just kept going on. But then I saw, the only way I can explain it to you were they were beings. I don't want to say entities. I almost don't want to say they seemed almost animal-like to me, but they weren't. They weren't. Let me explain. They were furry. That's the first thing. They were furry, and even though I had reached their size, I could tell that they were enormous anyway. But I was the same size at them at this as them at this point. And when I saw them, they seemed to be in their own conversation, though I don't know exactly what they were saying or if they were saying anything. They had long ears. Now, the way I'm describing this, I'm describing them in darkness. I thought that they had fur, but there was a figure to them, and they did seem almost animal-like, but then at the same time, they seemed almost human too, to a certain extent. I'm trying to find the words to explain what they looked like, but they were beige, at least that I can tell, what I could tell in the darkness, and they had long ears, almost rabbit-like long ears, but I couldn't see eyes, and I could see fur all the way down. And as soon as they turned and looked at me, even though I was the same size as them, I was completely intimidated. Like, I don't know what these things are, and I thought to myself, I gotta go back. And as soon as I shut my eyes in that reality, I thought to myself, I want to go back. I was back. I was back here in the 3D world. All right, guys, I got to go back to work, or I have to get to work, but I will post this when I come back. Thank you so much for coming on this amazing, weird, strange, unique journey with me. And until next time, take care.